On April 27th, Marvel and Disney are going to release what is being called the most ambitious crossover event of all time. Now, I personally think it's too early to say that with certainty in a world where the Jetsons have met the Flintstones, but there's no doubt that it's the biggest film so far within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, as it is the culmination of over 10 years of planning and 18 feature-length films, not to mention original TV series on Netflix, ABC, Hulu, and Freeform, tie-in comics, video games, and amusement park rides. That's right, Guardians of the Galaxy has its own amusement park ride. The entire Marvel Universe has become an institution of pop culture thanks to the MCU, and they're about to bring it all home with their biggest movie yet. So how does one prepare for a cinematic event of this magnitude? The same way you prepare for everything else in 2018, you go to the internet and you find a list made by some random weirdo in his basement who probably doesn't know what he's talking about. First, I want to talk briefly about what this list isn't. This is not a list of the 6 best Marvel movies. This is not a list of my 6 favorite Marvel movies. In fact, many of my favorites aren't on this list at all. And just to get this out of the way, yes, I am an unapologetic Marvel fanboy. I like all of the Marvel movies, even the ones that I don't. They consistently cleared the bar they set for themselves early in the franchise history. I think all of the movies are entertaining and fun, and I will continue to go see them as long as they're being made. They aren't perfect, and I will point out what I think the flaws are of the movies I've chosen, but I will not be giving these movies the vivisection that some people crave. If you aren't interested in seeing Infinity War and you don't like the Marvel movies, this list is not going to convince you otherwise, nor is it meant to. The movies on this list were chosen to get people caught up and hyped up for one movie, Avengers: Infinity War. An 18 feature film franchise released in a span of 10 years is insane. It took the James Bond franchise 27 years to get 18 films, 35 years if you don't count the out-of-continuity Peter Sellers' Casino Royale and the 1983 Thunderball remake where Sean Connery remembered how much he liked money. Over 18 movies, the total runtime for the MCU, just the movies mind you, is over 38 hours. That is a lot of movie. It's a big ask to try to get through every Marvel movie in the month before the release of Infinity War. It's for that reason that this list is going to stay away from any ancillary MCU media. Though I think that Season 1 of both Daredevil and The Punisher are some of the best comic book adaptations ever made, all of the Marvel TV shows are mercifully left off this list. Now for the really dedicated fans, AMC Theaters are having a marathon of 12 Marvel movies, which ends in a screening of Avengers: Infinity War, in one theater, for 31 hours? Yeah. So if that sounds like something you'd enjoy, I encourage you to check it out, but for the love of God, please bring deodorant. For those of us who want to come out of Infinity War without bed sores, I propose a different solution. I think that with just 6 movies, approximately 1/3 of the MCU, you can get up to speed and prepare yourself for the balls-to-the-wall craziness we're bound to see in Infinity War. Why 6? Because that is the number of movies our team of scientists determined someone could get their disinterested girlfriend or boyfriend to sit through before they begin considering the perks of being single. In all seriousness, fans love to share the things they love with the people they love. That makes sense. And if you're in a relationship with someone who is as big a fan as you are, and you want to slam down 18 movies over the next month to prepare, then that is definitely what you should do. But it's been my experience that a lot of relationships have what I'll call a fandom imbalance. Which is not to say that couples never like the same things, but there's usually a lot more enthusiasm coming from one side or the other, depending on the subject. So essentially, this list is meant to be a guide for anyone who wants to share the MCU with someone who may not have the stamina to endure 38 hours of costumed heroes, but would be happy to sit down for a few evenings to get ready for a big night out at the movies. Secondly, as fans, it's sometimes easy to forget that there are still people out there who have never seen a Marvel movie. As crazy as it may sound, there is someone in the world whose first Marvel movie is going to be Infinity War. His name is Paul, and he lives in Tempe, Arizona. And Paul is going to be really confused when he walks out of Infinity War. Paul isn't going to know who any of the characters are, or why they're doing what they're doing, or what an Infinity Stone is, or why he should care. He's just going to want to know why his friends wanted to see this movie in the first place. So if you don't want to be like Paul, I think this list will help fill you in on most of the critical details that you'll need to know to understand and appreciate the plot of Infinity War. It is also for this reason that I will be doing my level best to avoid spoilers so as not to diminish the experience for anyone trying to enjoy these films for the first time. The third audience for this are the series fans like me, who have seen all these movies at least once, some of them multiple times, but have busy lives and responsibilities that don't involve talking raccoons and magic space gods, and are just looking for an abbreviated list that they can work through over the next couple of weeks as they get ready to see Avengers: Infinity War. So, on with the list. Movie 1, Iron Man. I think it would be hard to make a case for starting anywhere else. This is the movie that started it all. Not only is it the first movie in the MCU, it introduces the audience to Tony Stark, the charismatic playboy billionaire with a heart of copper wire and some LED lights and some kind of jelly. Tony Stark's character arc is central to the MCU and will undoubtedly be central to Infinity War as well.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
Robert Downey Jr.'s performance has consistently been among the best and most entertaining in the MCU, and he seems to genuinely enjoy his role in the Marvel films. And while some of the movies are certainly more enjoyable than others, there's not a second of screen time with RDJ that isn't entertaining. The visual effects still hold up, even 10 years on, and the movie has a pace that never stalls, despite very little screen time actually devoted to Iron Man. More than that, this film set the bar for Marvel movies in general, and established the overall tone of the MCU. When I walked into the theater to see Iron Man for the first time, I was skeptical if it could actually lead to an Avengers movie, let alone 3 in 10 years. When I walked out, I was a true believer. Oh yeah, and one more thing. The next time you see this guy, he's gonna look a little different. Captain America, the first Avenger. Tony Stark may be the big brain of the MCU, but Steve Rogers is undoubtedly the heart. The scrawny army volunteer who wanted nothing more than to serve his country and protect the people who couldn't protect themselves is brought to life with incredible faithfulness not only to the source material, but to the character as well. Chris Evans brings Captain America, a guy who is literally dressed up as an American flag, to life in such a believable and empathetic way that you just can't help but love him. He's the ultimate good guy, and that is on full display in his first solo film. Like Tony, Steve is a crucial part of the Avengers team, and his story tests him in a lot of ways that directly lead him to where he is when Infinity War begins. It also sets up a lot of the future Captain America and MCU films in ways that I won't be delving into here as to avoid spoilers.
Whatever happens tomorrow, you must promise me one thing. It's that you will stay who you are. Not a perfect soldier, but a good man.
To the little guys.
Full disclosure, Captain America is a little cheesy at times. The villain is far from the best in the MCU, and it introduces a lot of great characters that don't really do much in this movie, somewhat squandering some great actors and great characters in the process. That being said, Captain America, the First Avenger, is a must-see going to Infinity War. For a lot of reasons, not the least of which is the fact that it introduces an artifact of immense power, the Tesseract, to the MCU. This incredible source of nearly infinite power is the motivation for the villains of Captain America, and may be even more powerful than it seems. Marvel's The Avengers. The characters of the Avengers had little recognition and less respect in 2008, but by 2012 they were household names, coming together for an incredibly entertaining and truly epic film which would end up raking in over $1.5 billion at the box office. 4 of the Avengers had been in solo movies of their own, and all of them had been in at least one Marvel movie before this one. That feat alone was considered an impossibility before this movie's release. This movie was an impossibility. It was the Cubs winning the World Series of movies. It was the Miracle on Ice of movies, and that has its own movie. Avengers builds on all of the prior Marvel films in some way, but most of the broad strokes get recapped through the dialogue and various character interactions. If you don't know who Thor and the Hulk are, don't worry. Someone will tell you what you need to know, and they'll probably do it with a speedily delivered Joss Whedon one-liner.
Yeah, big man in a suit of armor. Take that off, what are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
If you're just going off this list, you're going to be getting your first good look at a lot of new characters. Thor, Loki, Nick Fury, the Hulk, Black Widow, Maria Hill, Eric Selvig, this guy. I feel like I'm forgetting someone. Anyway, all of these characters are important in their own right, but ultimately, if you feel like you're missing something critical, don't worry, you're probably not. I mean, the MCU Hulk movie is basically treated like it didn't happen. Black Widow and Nick Fury are in Iron Man 2, but ultimately just serve as a setup for this movie. More importantly, this is the Marvel movie where the stakes get raised to a cosmic scale. Loki's motivations as the film's main antagonist are deeply linked to the cosmic forces which loom over the MCU going into Avengers Infinity War. In the end, Avengers more than delivers on its promise and still stands as one of the most entertaining Marvel movies. As the first big crossover movie in the MCU, it set the standard for big crossover movies. Guardians of the Galaxy. This is when Marvel started calling their shots. On paper, Guardians of the Galaxy is, to be kind, really weird. Superficially, it's nothing like any of the Marvel movies that came before it, nothing like any of the comic book movies that came before it, and maybe not like any movie that came before it. Guardians of the Galaxy could only exist in an environment where Marvel already had several successful movies under their belt. They got to make this movie because they had proven themselves, and in doing so proved that they knew exactly what they were doing the entire time. With a natural charisma score of 18, Chris Pratt is the heart of this tale of space-hopping anti-heroes and castaways.
Who are you? Star-Lord. Who?
His portrayal of Star-Lord is now as iconic as RDJ's Tony Stark or Chris Evans' Cap, and so I expect him to play a major part in Infinity War. Guardians of the Galaxy also gives us the most insight so far into the cosmic villain at the center of Infinity War, the fallen titan Thanos. He doesn't get much screen time, but his presence is felt throughout the film in the form of his quest to obtain ancient objects of great power known as Infinity Stones, whose origins are also explained. Now, as far as the rest of the MCU, there's not a lot going on in Guardians of the Galaxy. Not one Avenger appears in the film. The after credits bonus scene doesn't even tease an upcoming movie. Guardians of the Galaxy is one of the closest things the MCU has to a standalone film. That being said, an amazing cast, great humor, a fantastic soundtrack, mind-blowing scenery, and the fact that it's still, for me, the high watermark of the entire MCU all push Guardians of the Galaxy over the top for this list. Avengers: Age of Ultron. I don't know anyone who would say that Age of Ultron is their favorite Marvel movie. I mean, statistically speaking, the fact that millions of people have seen it, and there are people alive right now who think the Earth is actually flat and the moon is a hologram, dictate that it must be someone's favorite, but that person is wrong. It's not that I don't like Age of Ultron, I do, but it's not a movie I find myself going back to frequently, and honestly, I couldn't tell you exactly why. It's fun, it's funny, it's got some great new characters and some incredible action sequences. It even manages to strike some emotional chords. But it just fails to capture the magic of the first Avengers movie, and in the end, there's just not much to say about it. So why is it on this list? One word: Vision. Without going into too many spoilers, Vision is a new Avenger who is introduced in Age of Ultron, and who I think has a big part to play in Infinity War. Age of Ultron also sets the stage for the last movie on the list, Captain America: Civil War. So I know the title of this one suggests that it's another Captain America solo movie, but in actuality, this movie is an even bigger crossover event than the first Avengers film. Civil War does focus mainly on Steve Rogers, but in truth, it is as much an Iron Man movie as it is a Captain America movie. Both characters have their worlds turned on its head, and the conflict between Stark and Rogers that provided tension in Age of Ultron becomes a full-blown war. A civil war.
Sorry, Tony. You know I wouldn't do this if I had any other choice. But he's my friend. So was I.
In addition to Cap and Iron Man, just about every other character that has been in a Marvel movie shows up, making it a great way to introduce characters you may have missed if you're following the list. In fact, both Spider-Man and Black Panther appeared in Civil War before they had their own movies, and they both steal the spotlight whenever they're on screen. In the end, despite the movies that were released after it, Civil War sets the stage more than any other for the events of Infinity War, and pretty much spells out where the Marvel heroes stand before their first encounter with the power-hungry, Infinity Stone-obsessed Thanos. So now that that's out of the way, there's something I need to add. If you really want to get the most out of Infinity War, you should watch as many of the MCU movies as you can. I think this list is a great start, and it will introduce you to most of the characters you're going to see in Infinity War, but if in watching these movies you find yourself drawn to certain characters, then you really owe it to yourself to check out the other movies they're in. And if the movies on this list are leaving you flat, then you should branch out and find ones that capture your interest. Personally, I have to give a big recommendation to Captain America: Winter Soldier, Spider-Man: Homecoming, Thor: Ragnarok, and Black Panther for being some of the best movies that Marvel has put out to date, each one coming close to the Guardians of the Galaxy level of entertainment. And I have to give a shout out to Doctor Strange as well. It looks like he's going to be a big part of Infinity War, and his solo movie is a journey into parts of the Marvel Universe that doesn't get touched on very much in the other movies. So I guess that's it. The 11 movies you should watch before Infinity War. Nailed it. Well, I tried. Thanks so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you all at the theater on April 27th. And remember, always stay for the credits.